Well, hello there, and welcome to my kitchen table. A place in most homes where we can sit with family and friends and just talk for hours, putting the world to rights, as my dad used to say. I would normally start off with a little bit of information about the area, city, town that the story takes place. Although this woman travelled about a fair bit, so I'll just say this happened in England in the United Kingdom. So if you're ready, take a seat and I'll tell you a story. Amelia Dyer is credited as being one of the most prolific murderers in British history. So, who was she? Not a lot of information is out there about her early years, what kind of childhood she had, etc. But she was born in 1837, and after her parents passed away, her older brother actually inherited their lucrative shoemaking business. Now, he wasn't obliged to keep a roof over Amelia's head, or feed her, or clothe her, etc. So this left Amelia with no income and no means of support. So at 24, she married George Thomas, who was 59. He was able to pull a few strings and get her into nursing school. She trained as a nurse and then as a midwife. And by the 1860s, she owned a boarding house. Why would a nurse need a boarding house, I hear you ask? Well, she had plans. This boarding house was specifically for unmarried, expectant women. This was the time that Amelia Dyer became a baby farmer. Baby farming was quite a lucrative trade in Victorian era Great Britain. The Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834 had made it so fathers of illegitimate children were not obligated by law to support their children financially. And as abortion was not only illegal, but often deadly, this left many women without a lot of options. Amelia would help the mothers deliver their babies, and then for a fee, in this case £10, which would be over £1,700 today, the baby farmer, or in this case Amelia, would adopt the unwanted child. Baby farmers operated under the ruse that the baby would be loved and taken care of, but often the babies were mistreated and even killed. Dyer herself assured her clients that children under her care would be given a safe and loving home. Yeah, right. Initially, Dyer, very fitting name I might add, would let the child die from starvation and neglect. Mother's friend was an opium laced syrup that she gave to keep the babies quiet, which meant the babies slept while they starved to death. Eventually, Dyer actually resorted to faster methods, which allowed her to pocket more profit. When a baby passed away, she would contact the local doctor to examine the body and take it away. Now, this meant she was liable for the doctor's fees and any mortician's fees that were involved in the disposal of the body. One doctor in 1879 reported her to the authorities because of the number of baby deaths in her care. Okay. And she was arrested. Dyer was only charged with neglect, not murder, neglect, but she was sentenced to 6 months hard labour. She learned from her conviction. On her release, she returned to baby farming, but this time she didn't involve doctors or morticians and began disposing of the bodies herself to avoid any added risk or cost. She also relocated quite frequently to avoid suspicion and took up the use of aliases. To make even more profit, she actually started killing the babies very soon after they came into her care. She did this by wrapping bias binding or edging tape around their tiny necks and choking them to death. She's actually said to have done this with a smile on her face because she enjoyed watching them suffer. Initially, she would bury the bodies, but soon she started tying bricks to them and throwing them in the River Thames in London. Dyer was eventually caught when a package was recovered from the Thames containing a baby boy and a baby girl. They were traced back to a Mrs. Thomas. Would you believe using forensics? Under a certain light, the maker's name of the tape was actually visible, and they discovered this. So they contacted the maker, who was able to identify the supplier or retailer, who was able to identify the customer, hence Mrs. Thomas, which was one of Dyer's aliases. When authorities raided Dyer's residence, or Mrs. Thomas's residence, they were overcome with the stench of human remains, although no bodies were found. She was arrested on the 3rd of April 1896. Several more babies were recovered from the Thames, each with white bias binding still wrapped around their necks. Dyer was later quoted as saying about the white tape, "Well, that's how you knew that it was one of mine." Amelia Dyer was tried at the Old Bailey on the 22nd of May 1896. She attempted using insanity as her defence. Well, let's face it, don't they all? She was charged with the murder of a baby girl. This was what was called a sample charge. The bodies of 6 more babies had been found, and further evidence pointed to at least 12 murders. It took the jury less than 5 minutes to come up with a guilty verdict. As Dyer had approximately 20 babies in the 6 months leading up to her arrest, and using estimates based on this and her years active as a baby farmer, some experts actually believe that she is likely to have killed up to 400 babies. On Wednesday, June 10th, 1896, just before 9 a.m., Amelia Dyer was hanged from the neck until dead at Newgate Prison in the City of London. Following this case, the laws for adoption were changed. It also meant that men were made responsible for the financial welfare of their children. That law still stands today. And there we are. A very short one. Thank you so much for allowing me to tell you this very short story. If you found it interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe. It's free to do, so don't hold back. Get your fingers working on those keyboards with any comments. And smile. Smiles are infectious. So let's start a pandemic. It's got to be better than the last one we had. I've been Sue, TTFN.